Okay, back with another video for my YouTube channel. Atheism is false. Positive atheism, rather, is false. Negative atheism, that's just psychological report on one's level of persuasion. I'm unconvinced is the mantra or the motto of negative atheism. Whereas positive atheism, they give you arguments. I mean, just yesterday, I spoke to a positive atheist. He says that Yahweh does not exist because of the problem of evil. That's an argument. That's a reason for not believing in God. And we went through it. And it turns out that he did not know enough theology to have an accurate understanding about the things that he was talking about. So he was making a lot of mistakes definitionally. Was arguing against a position where Christians believe in ontological evil. Ontological evil exists. It exists because God created it. God is ontologically good. So if an ontologically good being creates an ontological evil essence, then that's a contradiction. The properties of God contradict the properties of what has been created. So that was a contradiction. But Christians don't believe in ontological evil. We don't. Um, Positive atheism is the position that God does not exist. It's not merely I lack belief in a God. It is there is no God. There is no God. And don't believe me for a second. Just look it up on Google or AI. It's a well-known word. It's not something I'm making up. It's a well-known word. I'm actually going to save you the trouble by typing it in myself on my computer here. What is positive atheism? Here we are. So, positive atheism is the philosophical stance that explicitly asserts no deities exist, also called strong or hard atheism. Now, something is true when it has a positive presentation and the absence of any negators. So there are no negators for it, and it has a positive representation. Positive atheism has no positive presentation, nor the absence of negators. Um, Let me see. So we have our first person here. Wait, I gotta go pee. Hold on. I'll be right back. This is just tautologically true, as atheism isn't a positive claim. Also, atheism has lower priors. Thank God I'm a soft atheist. Um, just just trust music. Look up what positive atheism is, okay? Just look it up and you'll learn something. Look it up and you'll learn something. A lot of you people just use one word, atheism. I'm an atheist. And you don't even know what the word means. You don't even know what it means. You don't know the historical development of the word atheism, and you don't know that there are different types of atheism. You think there's only one, and the one that's out there is I lack belief in a God or I am unconvinced. It's not only one atheism, guys. It's not. It's not. So when you see positive atheism is false, you don't know what positive atheism is. Look it up. Look it up. And then think to yourself, is it false? And think to yourself, are you a positive atheist? And what are the different types of atheism? Okay? All right, so you pull up a document here. There was somebody who requested. I tried to bring him up, but looks like he withdrew his request. Let me invite Just Trust Music. Hear what his take is on God's existence. Finley Pup, you're a soft atheist. Okay. I hope you're convinced one day. Just Trust Music, how you doing, man?
I'm alright.
Are you an atheist?
Yeah.
Why? Do you have like an argument for why you're an atheist?
Just too much baggage to commit to. Like theism has enough baggage to commit to itself, and then Christianity has its own long list of metaphysical baggage it has to commit to. And I just think like the probability of all those claims being true at the same time is lower than the one for theism, for atheism. So yeah, don't see a reason to change for that.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, there's so many theistic religions out there. They can't all be true, and
or even the set of claims for one of them, even the set of claim for whatever denomination of Christianity you want to bring up.
Oh, denominationalism. Oh, you're talking about the thousands of denominations?
That too, but like I'm saying, take one set of Christian positions that you have to hold to, and then test that against the position of there not being a God, and the probability, I just don't think the probability of Christianity being true is like...
Do you think that examining the probability of something presupposes a standard to do the probabilistic study?
Well, we can just kind of like compare A to B, really. You don't really need a full standard, like, completely.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking is, what is the worldview lens that you're using to examine if something is probably true or probably false?
It's just the amount of things you have to commit to, like kind of maybe a Bayesian inference. The amount of positions you have to commit to, and that kind of lowers the probability of things.
So is the worldview like naturalism, where you think that everything is in the universe is natural or physical, and a religious perspective can't fit into that?
I don't really have huge sweeping metaphysical claims at the moment.
Okay, so you're still figuring it out.
Yeah, I would say idealism is compelling. Like, kind of everything is consciousness is kind of compelling me now. Like some sort of some sort of spirit, like maybe like a world geist, like something like Hegel. But I'm still reading.
Okay.
So figuring everything out.
All right, man. All right. Since you're still figuring out your worldview, it wouldn't be fair for us to dialogue on it, because you'd be figuring it out as you go along, and I'm not in the formulate your worldview business. So thanks for coming, man. Thanks for coming, and stick around. All right.
All right.
All right. Let me see who else we got here. Big Dog Matt. Big Dog Matt. Big Dog Matt. Wait. You want to pause? Okay, Big Dog Matt. It's not there anymore. Stupid dumbass. Oh boy. I only call people stupid dumbass when they earn that word, when they earn it. I don't think this guy earned it.
Hey, what's up, man?
Doing all right, man. How are you?
Doing good.
Do you know what positive atheism is?
Yeah, can you explain it to me?
Positive atheism is the explicit claim that there are no gods that exist.
I agree with the fact that there none of the religions on Earth that we currently have. I think that all of those couldn't exist. I don't know about no God at all.
Okay, so all the religions of the world are false. Would that include Christianity? You still there?
It would include Christianity.
Yeah. What would be your argument for why Christianity is false?
Well, okay. Well, firstly, Christianity claims that we have an all good, all merciful, loving God, right?
So is it the problem of evil?
That that's a big part of it, but I have many things that I think make it impossible for it to logically be the case that Christianity is true. But the problem of evil is probably the biggest one.
Let's use the problem of evil. Let me see if I can pull up the syllogism for the problem of evil, and we can see how if you agree with my formulation of it.
Sounds good.
Let me see. Wow, this is moving slow today. Okay, opening. So when you make reference to evil, are you doing an internal critique or an external critique?
Um, I'm sorry. What do you mean by that?
I mean, are you taking the definitions, ideologies, phrases of the Christian worldview and then identifying a contradiction and then concluding that the worldview is false? Or are you doing an external critique where you're using your own definition of what is evil, what is good, and then identifying that Christianity does not meet those criteria that you have for yourself and then saying it's false?
Okay. Well, I'd say I guess I mostly then would be going off what I believe is evil, but and I mean in Christianity, evil would be things that go against God, right? I mean that would be the standard for it.
Well, in our worldview, evil is derivation. Anything that deviates from the prescriptive will of God, his law. That would be what we call evil. But in our worldview, God ordains that evil exist in the world so that He can use evil as a means to express His glory to His creatures. And in our worldview, God's glory is the highest good. So if we have a God who is all good, then He would be doing everything that would achieve that which is the highest good. And that is very consistent internally. So I don't see a problem with evil in our worldview if you do an internal critique. However, if you do an external critique where you create a definition of evil and say, if there is a God and He does not make sure that there is no sickness in the world, then that God is not all good. Then of course Yahweh is not all good in that way. Um, but it would be an imposition on the worldview itself, not something that we believe.
Okay. Well, let me ask for internally because I know in the Bible that God has commanded genocide and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So would that and you wouldn't consider that evil then? Yeah, if it's commanded by God, no matter what it is.
Well, we have a Latin phrase that we use to describe God's actions called ex lex. God is above the law that He gave to human beings because the law was given to human beings to govern our actions, not govern the actions of God. So anything God does, because He is all good, is going to be good by definition. So when you look at the commands, when God commanded genocide, a Christian sees that as God inflicting justice on sinners. Everyone is born a sinner, everyone is a sinner, and the wages of sin is unalivement. So if God withholds His hand from taking someone's life, that's mercy. If He takes their life, that's justice. We see those passages, we call them justice. But we also make a distinction between prescriptive passages and descriptive passages, in that when we look at that, we as Christians don't see that as our command to go out and conquer everybody and unalive their kids. We see that as a description of a historical event and how God interacted with individuals at that time.
Okay, I mean, you said we're all born with sin, right? That includes babies, like newborns, things like that, right?
Yeah. According to the worldview itself. So to represent the worldview accurately, when God takes the life of a baby in our worldview, That is God inflicting justice. But if we were to take the life of a baby, it would be wrong for us to do because we're not God.
Okay, so okay, then I guess do you hold any credence in the belief that I get my thought of how things are evil based off my own human experience, right? And the way that I suffer, I don't want to suffer when I do. Do you see any credence in the fact that I would then consider things to be evil just based off the fact that the experience itself just is terrible? And I know that even if God did command something, maybe I guess on an outside view, it might not be evil, but that suffering itself still is bad.
Yeah, I do give you credence in that if you're basing your morality off your experience, then you will look at Christianity and the Bible and say, wow, that's an evil God. How can he be all good and he's evil? That's a contradiction. But as I said, if you do an external critique, it would be you imposing definitions onto a worldview that the worldview itself does not hold to. An example would be me saying that, man, I don't want to, I'm gonna call you long face. It would be like me saying, long face thinks that evil is not beating your dog. But Longface does not believe that beating your dog is evil. Sorry, Longface does not believe that beating your dog is not evil. But I think that his position is, if you do not beat your dog, you're doing something evil. That's what I think. Now, if I impose that on you and say, Longface, because you're not beating your dog, you're evil, that would be a misrepresentation. That would be me imposing my worldview on you and saying that if you don't meet that standard of making sure your dog is beaten every day, then you're evil. When in your worldview, to take care of your dog is what is not evil, not beating your dog. So I'm just saying, when someone from the outside of Christianity says, if in order for God to be all loving, he has to make sure there is no suffering and there is no evil. There is suffering and there's evil, therefore God is not all loving. Well, wait a minute. That's not how we define all loving. That's not how we define all good. So if you go into our worldview itself and do an examination, you won't find a contradiction because God has a sufficient reason for why evil exists. And that reason is for him to achieve the highest good. And all good God would aim for the highest good, and that is his glory.
Yeah. Okay. So I agree with you. There's reasons why suffering could be justified as good by God that knows much more than me, obviously. And I understand that. But do you think that if the world was filled with unnecessary suffering that didn't have any greater good, would that be incompatible with the old good God?
Of course it would be. That would be gratuitous evil, which is something we don't believe in. In our worldview, I'm a Presbyterian, I'm Calvinist, and most Christians would agree with me when I say that when God created the world, he knew exactly what was going to happen, but he created the world anyway. So if a Christian says that there is unnecessary evil, they have a problem because now you have a God creating a world knowing that something bad is going to happen unnecessarily, and he could have made another world, but he still created this world. That Christian has a problem. But I don't believe that. I'm what you would call a decretal necessitarian, in that everything that happens in the world is necessary relative to God's decree, God's plan. So God planned everything that would happen. The analogy I can give you is a story. If I write a story, every event in that story necessarily is going to happen because I wrote it. I'm the one who wrote it. I'm the one who made it. So God making everything, God ordaining everything, everything that happens is necessary. And when we talk about evil, the argument I give is it's like this in a syllogism. P1, if God ordains evil for morally sufficient and ultimately good purposes, then evil and God are not logically contradictory. P2, God ordains evil for morally sufficient and ultimately good purposes. Conclusion, therefore, evil and God are not logically contradictory. What are those purposes? The purposes are for God to express and display his attributes, his glory, to his people, his elect people and elect angels. And that's totally consistent internally in our worldview.
If that was the case, then I would agree. If all the suffering did have a greater goal, but yeah. What do you think of? Do you think animals suffer?
Yeah, I do. I do think that animals suffer, but in our worldview, God made human beings in His image, and because of that, all human beings have inherent value, dignity, and worth. So I am obligated to treat every human being with respect, love, and manner. Animals, on the other hand, the Bible says that they were given for our good, for our benefit. And one of those things is eating animals. And I do think that animals go through pain if they're being eaten, but I don't think that animals have the same value that we have. We can there's something called ascribed value, in that I can buy a dog, I can have my dog as a pet, and I ascribe value to that dog, and I call the dog my brother, my family. But the dog doesn't have intrinsic value. It only has value I ascribe to it. And animals do face suffering, but it's not evil in my worldview. It's not evil. It's not good, but it's not evil. I would say it's not good. It's improper to just hit a dog or hit a cat for no reason at all.
So you wouldn't say that beating an animal just for the hell of it, you wouldn't say that that's evil?
I would say that it's not evil in the sense that it's not breaking any of God's prescriptive laws or prescriptive will. But I would also say that it's not good because depending on the culture you're in, that might not seem like a good thing to the culture to beat a dog or just for the fun of it. And the Bible does say to us in Romans chapter 13 that we should subject ourselves to the laws of the land. But we also have passages that say, do we obey God or do we obey man? We obey God. So whatever laws do not conflict with God's revealed prescriptive law, we can participate in. In my country, it's not okay to see a dog and just beat the dog for no reason at all. Even though it's not evil in my worldview, I am going to follow that law by not beating the dog for fun. And this goes with our worldview in that we follow the laws of any land we live in, as long as it don't contradict the Bible.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. I just have. I don't know how it can be justified that doing unnecessary harm to animals is not. I mean, I understand that God never said it, but that's where you get your morals from. But as a living being with the experience of pain and suffering, there's reason for it. A human can suffer and they can learn from it. They can have growth and things like that. Why is it that God didn't just? Why did He make animals that could suffer? Why not have them be, if they were just for our need? Why not just throw that in there just as an easy thing, just to reduce the pain and suffering of living beings? The animals don't feel pain. They are significantly. I mean, they are significantly less conscious than us, in the sense that, like, so much so that they are so close to us. And
I mean, bro, that is something I never pondered, and it's a good question. And I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I don't know why God did not create animals that could not feel pain. I'm actually going to look into that. If there are animals out there who can't feel pain, I don't even know. I've never looked into that. I never pondered that question before. It's always more difficult questions I've been given. But that's a good question. I'm going to have to look into that, man. But I will give you my concession, though. If someone defines evil as inflicting harm to any degree or causing suffering to any degree, if the God of Christianity causes suffering or causes harm, then we have God doing evil. But that is going to be someone's definition of evil. If we, however, define evil the way Christians define evil, then we don't have a problem in our worldview. So in order for someone to falsify a worldview, they have to assume the truth of the worldview and then derive a contradiction. And the contradiction would be, say, for example, if you knew that Christians believe in ontological evil and ontological good, but the ontological good is God and He created ontological evil. Now that's a contradiction. If that's what we believed, and you assumed our worldview and say, hey, I'm just going to assume that your worldview is true. You believe that God created ontological evil. That's a contradiction because you have an all good God who is good in essence and nature, creating something that is the opposite of him in essence and nature. That's a problem. But what the truth is that the all good God created all things good, but ordained that they have the ability to do evil actions. Evil actions don't change your essence. If you lie tomorrow, it does not change that you're still long face. It does not change who you are as an individual. It's an action, it's an external action. So we don't have a contradiction in our worldview. So when you look at the problem of evil, just do some studying into theology and then see if you find the answer and then do more studying to see if the other issues that you have with Christianity are resolved. And next time I hear from you, I hope that you're a Christian.
I've looked into all sorts of faiths. I mean, I was born Muslim. I left that faith. I've looked into Christianity. I've looked into Hinduism, like most of the big ones. It seems that they all are not all, but I mean, this doesn't really apply to Hinduism. But the monotheistic ones like Islam and Christianity that claim that there's a all good God.
Right.
But man, I don't know what my point was.
No, I think you were gonna say the monotheistic religions that say God is all good. It seems to be contradictory when you look at the world and your experience. Yeah. That's usually what I hear, and I always say it is because of the definition of evil that you have. But what I would also point out is that if I were to do an internal critique of your worldview, then you would have to say, to a certain extent, that morality is subjective to the individual or the culture, right?
To a degree, yes.
To a degree.
I believe there's a an amount of objective morality that you can come to based off of the experience of living and just seeing the world. Like I'd say that like murdering somebody for no good reason, that objectively is evil, I'd say. And I mean, people can argue against that, but just I have so much proof to go with that based off what I see in the world.
Yeah, I know people would argue against that. That's why you would end up with what I would call moral fragmentation, where you have a multiplicity of views on what good is, what evil is, and various perspectives on what good and evil is change over time, and everything you think is good right now could change in 10 years or 20 years. I mean, in America, I'm not American, I'm from Jamaica, and I live in Jamaica, but in America, I watch the news, and there was a time when people did not think that homosexuality was a thing that people should do, or was a good thing for society. Now it's the opposite. Transgenderism is a new thing now, where now if you don't, some people think if you don't give your child puberty blockers, if they think that they're the opposite sex or opposite gender, you're doing something evil. If the government says, parents, you're not allowed to send your son to the doctor to have him mutilated because he thinks he's a girl. If you tell a parent that they're not supposed to do that, then you're being evil. When I mean, 50 years ago, nobody would even think of that for a second, sending their son to a doctor to get his, stuff removed because he thinks he's a girl. So morality changes over time, man. If you don't have an immutable standard to stand on and say this is wrong universally everywhere, and we have authority, accountability, and normativity, then you're going to have what is called moral fragmentation, where you think that unaliving somebody unjustly is evil, and I think it's good. Who's right? Gonna have problems.
Well, I mean, is there any justifiable basis though that you could point towards to do that? Because I have so much. Yeah, well, I mean, I feel that you would agree on a lot of the reasoning that I would use to come to that something like that evil. that something like that would be evil. And even people who are serial killers or things like that and would just enjoy to murder just for the fun of it, they would still agree that it's bad, but they just don't personally care.
All right,
Because
let's.
there is
Oops. Yeah, I agree with you, but let's get to the root of it. In your perspective, where does human value come from? Because I'm sure that you would say human beings have value, so we shouldn't murder them for no reason, right?
yes.
All right, where would you
I'd say
say where do you say the value came from?
human value comes from the experience of being human.
So the experience of being human. So the experience itself is valuable, right?
Yes.
Where did the valuation of the experience itself come from? Because you and I would say that insects have experience, mosquitoes have experience, but we don't value their experience. But our experience is valued. Or so the question is, are you saying that our experience is valued or our experience has value?
I'd say okay. Well, I think that every living being has an amount of intrinsic value.
All
I'd say
right.
for animals, for intelligent animals like let's say a dog or something, not nearly as much as a human because I'd say that their experience of life is much less complex and conclusive, I guess, as ours is. But they do still have an amount of intrinsic value by having an experience. And in the same way that I think a bug has just the tiniest amount of an amount of value, but not enough for me to really care about them. But I wouldn't go out of my way to like it's weird getting down to that. But I think it's a spectrum, and I think that we are far above at the top of it. But that every single living being matters, and that the only things that do matter are living beings.
Yeah, so I guess what I would ask is how do you justify the epistemology behind saying that we have intrinsic value and the intrinsic value is on a spectrum when it comes on to other beings in the world. Where does the intrinsic value come from in your perspective?
I mean, the only reason that I believe that is just based off personal experience of that I value my own life.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it is the only thing that really that I have. I mean, I die I'd care about what happens to my family and other people right now, but once I die, that's all I have, and I care so much about my own experience that I'd assume every single being with an experience cares about theirs in a similar way, and that for that reason that they have a value.
So would you say that according to that standard, right? If someone did not care about their own life and their own experience, that if they treated other people's lives the same way, without care and without any remorse, that you would be you would have to address, or rather, you would be seeing someone using your exact same standard, but in the flip side of it.
Well, yeah, I see what you're saying. The thing is, I mean, I just only have the totality of my life as my only experience of it, so I just can't. From my perspective, the way that I'm thinking of it right now is the only correct way to think of it. And I guess from somebody else with a different perspective, they would have a different one. But but my worldview doesn't have an objective, good or bad. That's just why, from all the knowledge that I have through my life and my experience, that's the objective conclusion I can come to based off my evidence.
Yeah, and you know that's what I see as one of the problems with when someone is not a Christian or affirms the biblical worldview, in that you're going to have different standards of how you arrive at your morality. Yours is your experience, and what you've experienced is that you value your life. So, because you value your life and your life is good when you have value for it, then you're going to expand that value to other people's lives around you. And that's your experience. But if I'm just saying, if I use that standard and carry it out to its extreme, I go to the extreme, whether left or right. If I go to the extreme to the right, someone could say that I value my life, and because I value my life, I don't care about anybody else's life. Or someone could say, I don't value my life, which means that I'm going to now not value anybody else's life. And we could also say that 100 years ago, if someone was growing up in a culture where they're so used to unaliving people who look a certain way, let's say they're from a different tribe or they have a particular mark on their body or whatever. Every time I see this person or anyone like him, I'm going to take their life. And that's their experience. Someone who says that experience is what gives them their perspective on the value of life would not have an argument against that, because they would be saying the same thing. Hey, I'm just using my experience to come to the valuation of human life, and you're using yours, so what's wrong? It's the same standard, just used in a different extreme.
Yeah, I mean, you're completely right. The,
So,
well, I mean, the thing is, though, my worldview isn't. I don't have it as like a guide to humanity. I think that anybody who doesn't agree with it is wrong, and everybody should be following it. I just, when I come to conclusions, I use whatever the best knowledge and evidence I have is, and my mine has led to this worldview. Other people obviously wouldn't agree with that. A lot of people would, but yeah, I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think that we should treat every human being with value, dignity, and worth in virtue of them being a human being. And in our worldview, a human life starts at conception. So that's why I'm against unaliving babies in the womb, because they have value. I should treat them with value the same way I would treat anybody else. And this is not because of my experience. This would be because of what God has revealed. So this would be a universal cultural thing, and that when you go back to the first century, Christians were against.
I'm sorry, my phone's about that. I gotta go.
All right, my brother. All right, brother.
Yeah, you have a good one, man.
Same to you, man. See you again. Give me a follow. God bless you.
I got you.
Yeah. So what I was gonna say was that in the first century, Christians have always been against. Like you can. This is historically documented. The Christians would try to save babies who were placed out on the street because they did not want the babies to be unalived in virtue of infanticide. They were against infanticide. In the Roman culture, in the Roman world, whenever a father had a daughter, daughters were not valued because they could not carry the name and stuff like that, or inherit the wealth of the father. So the fathers, they would literally put their daughters out on the street, on the ground, and the elements of nature would unalive the baby eventually. What Christians would do is they would take those babies, raise those babies, and they would even start um, institutions where, you know what, I'm not even gonna go that far because I can't remember what I read about that. They would take those babies and raise those babies by themselves, so that they could save those baby girls from people who wanted them for their brothels. That's historical fact. I can't tell you what the Christians did with the babies after they picked them up off the street, if they put them in orphanages or if they raised them. I can't remember what I read on that, but they valued human life so much, even the lives of women and babies, that female babies and boy babies as well, all babies, all human beings. They would try to save them from being picked up by someone who owned a brothel, because someone who would own a brothel would take those baby girls, raise them, and sell them as sex tools and stuff. So Christians have always valued human life. All right, so Dreamscape. I don't think that these people are still here. It's only 4 people listening right now. So I have a few requests, but those requests are probably withdrew. See, he's not coming up. I have another one, Elijah, waiting for the guest. So Elijah's not coming up. Jimmy. I'm doing all right. Are you a positive atheist?
Yeah, I am.
Is your argument the problem of evil?
Sorry, give me 1 second. Let me get some more quieter. 1 second.
Me.
Sorry about that, man.
Yeah, I was saying, is your reasoning for your atheism the problem of evil or something else?
So we actually talked about that the other day. Me and you. We talked about the problem of evil and how it doesn't necessarily contradict your specific concept of Christianity.
Oh, I remember you. I remember you. I remember you.
Yeah, man.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. And I was saying that it's logically possible for there to have been another world, and that's where the problem came in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I thought maybe if you wanted to switch gears this time, I wanted to kind of maybe take the opposite side here and hear why you think atheism is false.
I don't think atheism is false. I think positive atheism is false. If I'm just gonna go with atheism, like for example, the way it is mostly defined, that is just a lack of belief. That's a that's a report of level of persuasion. That by definition can't be false. That can't be false. If somebody is unpersuaded and they call that atheism, I'm unpersuaded that God exists. That can't be false definitionally. But positive atheism is the positive claim that there is no God. I don't think that that can be proven. I don't think that that has any weight. I don't think that that's true. Is number one, you can't prove it, and number two, from my perspective, every time someone tries to prove that Yahweh doesn't exist, it's usually a misrepresentation.
Okay, yeah. I guess I just didn't know if maybe you had arguments in favor for God that would show that obviously atheism couldn't work given this argument being true, or if you had anything
yeah.
like.
I have an argument. But the my argument is going to be evaluated by the worldview framework of the individual that I give the argument to, and that your worldview, and this is true of anyone else. Every worldview has a an evidence criteria that if is met, the person becomes a believer of the proposition or an acceptor of the proposition. And if someone is an atheist and they are an atheist because they are a naturalist, now atheism does not entail naturalism, but sometimes you have people who are atheists and naturalists. If you are a naturalist and I present to you this argument, you're not going to accept it because it's short of you seeing God as a physical, localized object, which would still be God not existing in your worldview. But I'm going to give you the argument because I would like to hear what you have to say about it. So it's three premises followed by a conclusion. All right? Ready?
Yeah.
All right. So P1, if intelligibility obtains, then there must exist an ultimate, ontological, personal, self existent, rational ground that sufficiently grounds the necessary preconditions of intelligibility and provides an epistemic justified path by which that ground can be identified and defended. So basically, there must be a grounding for existence itself and the structure of existence, and there must be an identifiable path of knowing this ground and defending this ground. P2, intelligibility obtains. Uh, P3, Yahweh, the self existent triune God, is the only ultimate ground whose attribute set sufficiently grounds the necessary preconditions of intelligibility and provides an epistemically justified path for identifying and defending him as that ground. Conclusion, therefore, Yahweh exists. There's a simplified form, though. Let me give you the simplified form because that was a word salad at the first part. So, P1, if intelligibility exists, then an identifiable and defensible ultimate ground of intelligibility must exist. P2, intelligibility exists. P3, only Yahweh qualifies as that identifiable and defensible ultimate ground. Conclusion, therefore Yahweh exists. So this is a valid argument. It may not be sound depending on the worldview that's interacting with it, but let's get into it. Which one of the premises would you say is false?
Yeah, can you just run the shorter version for me again real quick? I have terrible memory.
Oh, no worries. So P1, we can take them one by one if you like. So P1, if intelligibility exists, then an identifiable and defensible ultimate ground of intelligibility must exist. Intelligibility does exist. That's P2. P3, only Yahweh qualifies as that identifiable and defensible ultimate ground. And conclusion, therefore Yahweh exists.
Yeah, okay. I mean, obviously contentions with P3, and I think contentions with P1.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can lay out what you mean by grounding here first.
All right, so grounding would be the ultimate explanation for why something exists. That would be the grounding. Um, for example, me not floating away. The reason and the grounding for why I'm not floating away is gravity. Gravity gives the explanation for why I don't float away every time I get out of my bed. So a grounding would be the ultimate explanation for X thing. And P1 is actually based on an axiom. The axiom is in acronym form. It's PSR, Principle of Sufficient Reason, which was discovered by Leibniz and then later reaffirmed by Schopenhauer. That everything that exists has a sufficient reason for its existence. And I believe that's true because it's consistent with the biblical revelation, not because um, the biblical revelation assumes it. So it's true because it's consistent with God's word. God's word is not true because it's consistent with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would just reject that PSR. I guess we would start there probably.
So my question to you would be: do you think that the statement "everything that exists has a reason and explanation for its existence" is false?
I don't know if it's false, but I'm not convinced of that either.
Oh, so it's just you're unconvinced that it's true that everything that exists has an ultimate reason for its existence.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
Whenever you use the term ultimate here, I'm not sure that I believe in absolutes or ultimates. I guess when you say ultimate, you mean something like absolute, or maybe you can correct me.
Yeah, I do mean absolute, like a terminus point, a stopping point. This is the ground of being, the ultimate thing that exists, that everything else depends upon for its existence. If you were to deny that there is an ultimate, if you deny that, then what you would end up with is something that philosophers call metaphysical fragmentation, where if nothing is ultimate, then everything is ultimate. If nothing is ultimate that everything else depends upon, then everything has self existence and depends upon nothing for its existence. So, you, me, the cup, the car, everything around us, it exists self by itself, and nothing goes beyond it as an explanation for why it exists. That's metaphysical fragmentation. I don't think anybody can defend that.
Well, I mean, I would just argue that that doesn't follow, right? I mean, if I said that I don't accept something as some sort of ultimate ground, it doesn't then follow that nothing has any sort of grounding, right? There just wouldn't be some sort of ultimate grounding.
Okay, let's use that. What would you say the things are that have grounding and the things are that don't have grounding, and how do you know?
Well, I typically don't use the term grounding. I understand it's, terminology that some philosophers use, but I don't really think it's helpful in many instances because I think when people say grounding, what they really just mean is sustain, maybe.
Okay, let's use the word explanation. What would you say are the things that have an explanation for why they exist and the things that do not have an explanation for why they exist? Because that would be essentially what you just said. That you would say that it doesn't follow that if you're unconvinced of one ultimate, then that means nothing else has a reason or explanation for why it exists. So what would be the things that do have reasons and the things that don't?
Well, I mean, I guess it just depends on how far back you want to go, right? I could say something like it might be true that the universe doesn't have some sort of ultimate reason why it exists. It could just be that existence just is, right? But the things that come out of those existence might depend on certain factors about existence itself, like maybe the laws of nature or things of that sort. So, I mean, I could I'm not sure what all doesn't have explanations out there, but to claim to know or to think that everything must have an explanation, I think, is the issue I'm having.
I'm just speaking from my worldview, just being consistent with my worldview, and that my worldview, God is the creator and sustainer of all things, which would necessitate that all things have a reason for why they exist. If someone says, and that's not what you're saying, if you're saying it, you're unconvinced. You're not saying that Yahweh is not the ultimate and there is no ultimate. You're saying that you're unconvinced that there is one. But if you were to say that there is no ultimate, then I think that that's a very hard burden to meet. In that, how would you know that there is no ultimate? Because when you look at the modern cosmology, there is no unified consensus about the origin of the universe. If it had a beginning, if it was an eternal dense state that eventually expanded, or if it's eternal, there's no consensus. So if somebody says, I'm appealing to the consensus or I'm appealing to science, then what they have is epistemic fragmentation, where there is no agreement. So who are you going to follow? Who are you going to believe? And if you follow this group or that group over there, why do you think they're correct? By what standard? By what metric? I think it puts the individual in an epistemically bad situation.
Well, exactly what you said, though, right? You said, if I took the position that there were no ultimates, I might have a hard burden to bear, right?
Yeah.
But I think the same goes for the other way around, right? If I took the position that there was some sort of unified ultimate, I would also have a very hard burden to bear. There's a reason why these things have been debated for thousands of years. And it's why I kind of take a neutral position on it, right? I mean, I claim to be atheist when it comes to certain concepts of God, like, certain versions of God and other forms of gods as well. But, I can't claim to be, atheist in regards to all God concepts, right? I haven't heard them all. I could be wrong about certain God concepts.
Right.
So that's why I don't really take a position on it. And I think people that do, unless, you are, religious, I just think that you do have a high uphill battle to climb.
Yeah, I agree with you that we do possess the burden of proof if we say that the world does have an ultimate. I guess what I would say is that I I don't think that proof is persuasion. If somebody says that they're unpersuaded, it doesn't mean that they were not given proof or given evidence. Because the way I define evidence is that evidence is an available body of information that can indicate whether an assumption, a belief, or a proposition is true or valid. Proof is a available body of evidence or reasoning that can indicate whether something is true or valid. So I can present you with information like an argument, a deductive argument, or whatever, but that does not guarantee that you're going to be convinced. It's only going to be guaranteed that I have given you information or given you something that I think is proof. But ultimately, whether or not you accept what I present to you is going to be determined by your worldview. As I said, if you're a naturalist, what I gave you is not going to convince you. So the question is going to become, is naturalism true? Or if that's not your worldview, what is the worldview that you have that you're using as your lens to judge evidence? And do you know if that worldview is true? And how do you demonstrate it's true from your perspective? Because I don't know what your worldview is. I don't know. Even from our last conversation, you just said you're an atheist with the concept of God, some concept of Christian God. But I don't know what your worldview is. I don't even know if you're a naturalist, a physicalist. You think that everything in the world is only physical and stuff like that. I don't know. But if that is your worldview, then what I presented to you is not going to meet your criteria.
Yeah, well, I would say that I'm not a physicalist. I'm also, I mean, I guess under most labels you could consider me a naturalist, but I don't like the naturalist supernatural distinction. I don't think if you get down to the nitty gritty of both those definitions, there's really much separation there. But I don't really know what else you want to know about my worldview as far as your argument goes.
I mean, you are being consistent with naturalism because one of the positions of naturalism is that the universe is brute. It's a brute fact. It just is. There is no ultimate explanation for why it is. It just is, and there is no way of convincing a naturalist outside of that. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Remember, I'm agnostic on that specific.
Yeah, so your position is you don't know.
I'm agnostic on that specific.
Your position is you don't know, and you're not
Right,
saying
yeah,
that.
I don't think anyone.
Yeah. You don't think anyone knows?
I would say that no one knows. I would say arguments. No, I don't think so. I think that people have good inferences and good reasons to accept things that we consider to be rational arguments, given certain evidences that we have. But I also think that we are just a bunch of primates on an exploding planet in the middle of space that have only really been able to discover the things we have in a meaningful way for a little over a century. So, no, I don't think anybody actually knows the cause of the universe.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to give you my concession, man. I can't convince you. I can't convince you that the universe has an ultimate cause. I can only say that I believe it does because of the revelation of God's word, and it is impossible for me to interact with an I don't know perspective, um, a non-position, because you haven't taken a position on it. You're not saying that there is an ultimate explanation for the universe, nor are you saying there is no ultimate explanation for the universe. You're saying that you don't know and you don't think anybody knows. That's not a position that I can argue with. It's a non-position.
Well, I mean, you're saying it's a non-position, but it's actually not a non-position, right? What I'm doing is rejecting your theist position and your theist claims by taking the position that I don't know. And in fact, I reject direct concepts of the God that you believe in. So it isn't a non-position, right? It's just admitting that I don't think humans have the knowledge to know the cause of the universe yet. I think there's good inferences and good arguments to be made. But I think that's about as far as it goes. But that doesn't mean that that's a non-position, right? I laid it out very thoroughly.
I actually disagree because if somebody says that they don't know X, but they're denying Y, then
Yeah.
If you don't know what X is, but you're denying Y, I don't think that you have an epistemic justification for the rejection. That's why I try not to interact with people who pretend neutrality, because I don't think that anyone can be neutral on the question of what is ultimate. Either there is something that is ultimate or there's not. That's a true dichotomy. If you're saying that you're somewhere in the middle, but you're also denying or rejecting positions of that are presented to you as ultimates, then your rejection presupposes that you know something. It's incoherent to say you don't know anything and then you're rejecting something.
Well, I mean, that was just a big mess there. Saying that I don't know one thing doesn't mean that I'm saying I can't know anything, number one. And number two, I mean, I can just show a reductio ad absurdum to what you're saying here. What is the core of the moon made of? Do you know?
No, I don't know, but that's a lower order. That's a lower order conversation.
But do you think it's made of cheese? Like, if I told you it was made of cheese, would you reject that?
I would say that I'm unconvinced that it's made of cheese.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would reject that. I would say that I have enough rational reason and understanding of cheese and how it's processed to assume and to make correct inferences that it is not at the center of the moon. So for you to say, me saying I don't know the ultimate beginning of the universe or claiming that there is one, means that I can't reject certain theist concepts of God. It's just, it makes no sense.
Oh, let me try
just
to clear it up.
Let me try to clear it up. What the core of the moon is, you can still rationally reject that it's made of cheese.
Let me try to clear it out. I'm making a distinction between lower order argumentation and higher order argumentation. Lower. Lower order argumentation is referencing comparing evidence, comparing things that we have in our experience. You can present to me information, I can present to you information, and so on and so forth. Higher order argumentation is when we have discussions about what makes information possible in the first place. What is it that is ultimate, that dictates and determines and imposes the order and structure in reality for there to be evidence in the first place? I do not think that anyone can be neutral on that question. You can be neutral on questions of things that we observe, like the moon, whether you have $100 in your pocket, did you have breakfast this morning, and stuff like that. Lower order argumentation and conversation. But the question of what is it that is ultimate, I don't think anyone can be neutral on that, because the very act of making predication presupposes implicitly that there is something ordering and structuring that you are able to make predication, because you have presuppositions about your own existence, the continuity of the meaning of words, the continuity and distinctions between yourself and myself and people around you. And the question becomes, what is it that is ultimate, that determines that these things stay the way they are and exist in the first place? If you say you don't know, then as soon as you say it is not Yahweh, or as soon as you make predication, you are presupposing there is something that is ultimate, but you have not identified what it is.
Well, I mean, I really don't understand why you're saying what you're saying. You're saying because if I say I don't know what's ultimate, therefore any sort of rational understanding of the world fades away?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying your understanding of the world presupposes a foundation. It presupposes a foundation, but you don't know what the foundation is. That's what I'm saying.
Well, what foundation?
We've been talking about
rationality. The foundation of what?
The foundation that makes any form of rationality, discourse, evidence, and existence possible in the first place. So I'm not just talking about rationality. I'm talking about everything in reality, everything that exists. There is something that is ultimate.
No. You can be agnostic on the creation of the universe and still accept that other foundations are true, like the axiom that I exist. I accept that as true because I have no other option than to accept that as true.
Yeah, but how do you justify your existence?
Somewhat accurate information. Well, when you say justify here, what do you mean?
What would be your argument for? What would be your deductive argument for your existence that proves that you exist?
Well, what do you mean by proof?
What I mean by proof?
Yeah, can you prove your existence to me?
Well, in my worldview, my existence is proven by the fact that that which is ultimate created all things, including myself, and sustains all things, which produces continuity and distinction between myself and others. Whereas in your worldview, I don't think you have an ultimate.
Huh? That could just all be a trick of my imagination, right? I could just be dreaming right now.
But now you're appealing to possibility. You're appealing to possibility, and that's called the possibility fallacy.
We're appealing to the possibility that God exists and He granted you this information.
No, I'm not appealing to the possibility that God exists. I am saying that I am absolutely certain that God exists. I'm saying that you're appealing to possibility, and that's a fallacy in logic when you say that something is possible and then you argue for its actuality.
That's not a what?
That's not. Wait a minute. Are you saying that's not a fallacy?
Arguing that something is possible, how is that fallacious?
No. If you argue, if you argue that something is possible and argue for its actuality, if you argue for the possibility of something and then argue for its actuality, if you're saying that it's possible that this is all an illusion, what?
Isn't that how all God arguments are? You argue for the possibility of God.
No.
And then you argue that He is actually existing.
No, that's not the argument I gave you. But I think that my attempt to try and get you to take a position is failing miserably, because I don't usually have conversations. Hold on.
Okay.
I don't have conversations.
prove that I
I
exist.
don't.
And
Wait.
I asked you,
Hold on.
you
Hold
can
on.
prove that
Hold
you
on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. I don't have conversations usually with people who say they don't know, because I don't think that that's a coherent position. And I've been trying to get you to commit to a position
have
of
an
there is no
position.
ultimate.
I gave you many positions.
No, no. You said that you don't. You said that you're agnostic. You said that you're agnostic
I
on
said I'm
that which is
agnostic
ultimate.
as the creator of the universe, and then
And that's not a
many other
position.
positions against your God.
That's not a position.
That is a position. That is.
No, I reject
the definition
it.
of a position.
I reject it wholeheartedly. I don't think it's a position. You said you're agnostic, and that's not a position. I don't talk to agnostics. People who say that they don't know is not a position.
I can't have conversations with irrational people.
So what are you doing
So
here?
I mean,
So what are you
if
doing
you're
here?
irrational, then I guess after realizing that you are in fact irrational or
Okay,
ignorant
okay.
of how conversation.
Goodbye, buddy. Goodbye. 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 Because we had such a good conversation the last time, I was giving him the benefit of the doubt by, stepping out of my standard. But guys, don't have conversation with people who say they don't know, because all they're going to do is reject everything you give them without giving you a positive position about what they actually believe and what they actually hold to. And whenever I step out of my standard, things like this happen all the time. I need to learn. I need to learn. I need to learn. I really need to learn. But I gave him the benefit of the doubt because we had a good conversation the last time. But now I know, and I'm going to remember it. I'm going to remember it. And for all the Christians out there, if you are arguing against someone who is not a Christian and their position is I don't know, and everything you present to them is a negation or a rejection, the conversation it's pointless. It's pointless. It's pointless. It's pointless. So the I don't know position is not a position. It's not a position that you should interact with when it comes on to the position of that which is ultimate. Because you're saying it's Yahweh, and they're saying, I don't know, but I'm unconvinced it's Yahweh. And that's coherent? Oh my goodness. You know what? I've learned my lesson. Jimmy, good night. Good night. Are you an atheist?
No, I'm not, but I really appreciate what you're doing. I wanted to actually share a word with you. It won't take long.
Okay, sure.
I wanted to kind of talk about the Bible with you in general.
Sure.
So, I've been talking with people about the Bible and very, very different things. One thing I'll bring up is the miracles of the Bible, the miracles that Jesus performed.
Right.
Me personally, I always thought that, when Jesus turned the water into wine, it doesn't matter if he snapped his fingers. It doesn't matter how he did it, but it was a miracle because nobody knew how he did it, right? Now, somebody came to me with the idea and the proposition that Jesus just gathered up all the empty bottles, all the empty masons of the wine, right? The empty clay jugs, I mean, but when I say mason or masonry, and he scraped the sediment out all into one. And then he poured water into it and shook it around for a long period of time, or however long, short period of time maybe. And then he poured them in the glasses, and all of a sudden he made wine. Everybody thought he was God. That is just as a miraculous perspective as him literally just snapping his fingers to me. What do you think?
I would agree. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. I think that we can explore our imagination as to how these things happened and what the mechanism was that brought these things about. I mean, when Jesus fed thousands of people with a few fish and a few pieces of bread, I like to imagine that there was no fish there, and all of a sudden they just came there. And some people imagine that it came out of the sky. In multiple ways, we can explore our imagination.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they also say that there was baskets of overflow after everybody had their fill?
Yeah,
like there was leftovers.
Yeah, and I think I would say, if I were to explain the mechanism, that's an example of something coming out of nothing. God bringing something out of nothing, because there's not enough fish, and then there was enough fish. So
Right.
something came into existence, right?
It's the same thing with the wine.
Yeah. So I would say, it was not there because wine comes from grapes, and it's a different molecule that would have to come into existence that wasn't there before, and then you have wine that was once water.
Right. The whole thing was that he scraped the wine from the sediment of every bottle and mixed it together with water. Like, that's the claim that I heard. Like, I'm not taking that and saying that I think it's definitive or I think it's the utmost exactly what Christ did. I'm just saying that, like, I've heard this argument and I've kind of realized it is that, you know what? There could be earthly explanations for what God did, quote unquote, in the Bible. Like, another one I would point to is Moses. The same man had a correlative explanation for Moses. Moses poisoned the yeast of the Egyptians, right? And then he told all of his followers to not eat yeast.
Well, I think that when people try to explain the miracles of the Bible and they try to do so in a naturalistic way, then they are implicit naturalists. They're not telling you that they're naturalists, but they're talking like one because they don't want to have to defend naturalism. Because if they're intelligent, they know that naturalism can't be defended. It can't. It's impossible to be defended based upon the standard that they're using. Because
I don't mean to talk too much, but I agree with you, and I think that he did have a good sense of knowing that, you know what, he doesn't know exactly how it happened. He's just giving you
what do you think?
Possible.
Yeah, and anything that people say is possible that goes into a naturalistic explanation, they are denying the miracle. It was a miracle.
Oh,
so
okay, interesting. Yeah. I would say that too.
It was a miracle. So a miracle is when the natural laws have been violated or the natural laws have been suspended, the physical laws. That's a miracle. And in our worldview as Christians, the God of the Bible is the one who creates and sustains all of reality, which means that he has the power to decide how he will do so whenever he wants. And that's a miracle.
I agree.
That's a miracle.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree that all experiences are ordained by God and that, like, it is our perspective that is given to us from God. I 100% agree with you on everything. I think we're actually, like very similar. So, knowing that, like, how do you navigate what's going on right now? Like, just like bro to bro, like you see what's going on in the world right now, and like other than like I agree with you, you should have a voice and you should try to talk to people, right? That's the best that we can do. I mean, do you feel like there's an end here, like in our, like, for me, I think it's building a community and having an intentional community hidden from the world, because at this point the world is impermissible. What we ought to do other than show, like, we would have to be sneaky, right? Because we wouldn't want to be forsaken by our enemies being the world. As Christians, we would have to build an intentional community.
I mean, isn't that the church? Isn't that a church? Don't we already have a community?
But what church? Like, do you think you have a church right now?
I have a church that I go to right now. I mean, it's a Presbyterian church. We gather. We have a community. We take care of each other. I mean, is your question? Do I think an end is coming, or is it something else? I don't think I heard the question.
I know I'm talking a lot. It's kind of something I'm.
Oh, that's okay, man. I talk a lot too. But if I missed your question, I apologize, because maybe you said it and then I missed it.
I mean, you bringing up denomination is basically what I'm asking for. Is like you're saying, well, we're Presbyterian, but all that matters is that we come together. And I agree with you that people need to come together in order to have any sort of revelation whatsoever. So as Christians, though, I mean, do you really believe that Presbyterian Church is the denomination that everybody should be Presbyterian?
No, I don't. I don't think so.
Great.
I think that any church that believes the essential doctrines of the Christian faith is a Christian, because the Bible gives us liberty to have different perspectives and beliefs about certain things. A little,
Okay, so what
little,
is the? Maybe educate me. What is the difference between a Presbyterian and a Protestant? Because for me personally, I do not have a denomination, and I do not go to a church because, well, I've gone to church, right? Because God has put certain circumstances in my life,
yeah,
where I had to be in church, right?
Yeah, a Presbyterian is a Protestant as well, but we distinguish between magisterial Protestants and radical Protestants. A magisterial Protestant is a Protestant who believes, or at the time of the Reformation, we believe that the Roman Catholic Church has apostatized, and we can reform the church and bring the church back to its original. The radical reformers said that the church is so corrupt, we have to rebuild everything, we have to recreate everything, and then you have.
I got it. So how do you disagree? Because I mean, I don't want to be radical. You're trying to define what is considered radical Protestant belief and what is considered non-radical Protestant belief. Sorry. The thing is as far as the Catholic religion goes, I do think it kind of is unrebuildable at this point.
That's what the magisterial Protestants realized, and that is why they started denominations. So we had Presbyterianism, Lutheranism, Anglicanism, and Reformed Baptist, and that was the churches that existed along with Roman Catholicism and Eastern Orthodox from the 1500s to the 1700s. In the 1800s.
So we all added up to 7. So how many churches? How many mainstream churches? You just said 7, right?
Yeah. Let me. I was just about to get there. In the after the 1700s, we have in the 1800s the rise of Seventh Day Adventism, Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, and then after them we got into the 1900s when we have Pentecostalism, and outside of them Oneness Pentecostalism, and outside of their foundation we have Charismaticism, which is the vast majority. The vast majority. So the vast majority of Christians today fall into charismatics, Pentecostal, and so on and so forth. And that's where you get all of these denominations, because the difference between them and us is that we believe that the church did not stray completely. The church had pure doctrines in the first 600 years, but then when you get to the 700s onward up to the 1500s, we have the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages, the age of apostasy when the church strayed. So the reformers brought us back. So what I was saying earlier is that someone is a true Christian when they believe the essentials, and the essentials would be the Trinity, the person of Jesus Christ having two natures, the human will of Christ, the creeds as doctrinal summaries, the authority of the canonical scriptures, and so on. So if anyone believes these essential doctrines, they're Christians. Anyone who believes it, they're Christians.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you deny those essential doctrines, it doesn't matter what label you have.
No. You say me? I don't.
No, not you. I'm talking generically. I'm talking generically.
If you.
I'm gonna say if anyone affirms these doctrines, it doesn't matter what name they have as a denomination. They're a Christian. But if someone denies them
at the start, right?
Because, at the start. So like Muslims.
So I would say, so there's 66 books in canon. You said chronological. Right?
Canon, the books of the Bible. You believe them. Right, so for example, Muslims they don't believe.
Listen, aren't there 20? There's 22 books occluded from the Bible. Do you think those are heresy?
The books that are excluded from the Bible, they are excluded for a multiplicity of reasons. One of the main reasons is that the Old Testament congregation, the Israelites, they knew who the prophets were, and they knew what the books were that they wrote, and they kept those books in the temple to be read on a daily basis by the priests, so they knew what the books were. Then you have the New Testament, where in the New Testament, the followers of Christ knew who the disciples and the apostles were and what their books were. And when they wrote those books, they kept those books as being canonical. So the Old Testament would be 39 books because they did not accept the Apocrypha. The Jews never accepted the Apocrypha. And that's why we disagree with the Roman Catholics who say that you should affirm those books as well. But the Jews did not, and the Jews knew who the prophets were. So you have a problem with the Jews. The New Testament canon is 27 books universally. All of Roman Catholics, Eastern Orthodox, everybody accepts 27. So it's the Old Testament.
Wait,
that's the
27?
problem.
I thought it was 66. Wait,
Yeah.
no, you're saying 27 just for the the New Testament?
Yeah. 27 plus 39 is 66. So there's 39 in the Old Testament.
Okay, but it's 39 no matter what, right?
It's 39, and the reason why we know it's only 39 is because of what the Israelites said, because they knew who the prophets were. They knew Isaiah, they knew Jeremiah, they knew Ezekiel, they knew Daniel, they knew Samuel, who wrote 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings. They knew who the prophets were. They knew Moses, who wrote the first 5 books of the Old Testament. They knew them, so they knew.
I did want to talk.
Yeah.
Wait, did I mention the thing about Moses? Do you think he poisoned the Egyptians?
Poisoned the Egyptians? You mean when the Egyptians passed away in the ocean, when the ocean was brought back together?
Well, so I'm just saying,
or the
there's some
firstborn
theory out there that supports the claim that so Moses actually led an insurrection of some sort, right? So he basically, if you look at him as a military general or something like that, he practiced something that he knew was going to come true because he had the ontological knowledge.
Right.
In the way that, when he tells his people not to eat bread, when he tells these people not to eat things because God says so, and they make marks to show their covenant of God, right? And to show that, the only reason why we're doing this is because of God. Well, the people that are doing that, they're righteous and they're ought. But Moses, quote unquote, could have been playing a trick on them. I don't know. I'm not saying it's definitive. I'm just saying, that's how the story could have happened. And I don't know. What do you think?
Well, how I go about knowing what the Christian position is on these things is I look at the over 1 million pages of recorded commentary on the Old Testament by the Church Fathers. Whenever there's a disagreement or a misunderstanding about what does this mean, what does this what is the ideology behind this or that, what we always have to do, well, as Presbyterians, we follow Church Fathers as well. So if your interpretation is different from mine, who's right? We go to the Church Fathers. So you look at what they wrote about these things, and then you come to a conclusion. But bro, thank you for coming, man. Give me a follow. I'm gonna jump off of here because my wife finished making dinner, and you know when it's dinner time, you gotta go. So
I agree with you, brother. Dinner is good. Love
yeah,
you, brother.
Thank you for coming, man. Love you too, and thanks for your follow and for your support. God bless you, man. Thank you.
Yep, you too, man. Love you.
Man, it's always good to meet up with my brothers in Christ and hear the words "I love you." I love you too, man. I love all of you, and that's why I do this, so that you can all understand and know how to defend the faith. And again, because it was the guy that came before this one just came. If anyone comes to you who says they're an atheist or they don't believe in God or whatever, and they have a position of "I don't know," don't argue with the position of "I don't know." It's a non-committal position. It's a non-committal position. And that's the position they take when they don't want to defend anything. They don't want to defend a positive claim, a positive position. So they say, "I don't know." And then when you try to argue for your position, they say they're unconvinced. I don't usually do that. I never do that, as a matter of fact. I never do it. But I was giving him the benefit of the doubt because we had a good conversation the last time we spoke. And I don't want anybody to get me wrong. I don't have any atheist friends. I don't. And I'm not looking for any atheist friends. So if any atheist and I have a good conversation, Make no mistake about it. If you don't want to talk to me again, or you one day you say you're done with me, or whatever, we were never friends in the first place, so I don't care. So I'm just making this very clear. I'm not looking for friends from atheists. I'm not. So if we had a good conversation the last time, and now he's saying he doesn't talk to irrational people, I'm glad. I hope he never talks to me again, because apparently, according to him, I'm irrational. I don't care. Guys, do not, I repeat, do not have a conversation about God's existence with a person who has a non-committal position. That is a very good position to be in when you are arguing with an atheist or a Christian. Because all you have to say to every argument that is presented to you is, I'm unconvinced. I'm unconvinced. And the Christian says, you're unconvinced? Okay, so what is it then? I don't know. I don't know. And in this conversation, Yahweh is the ultimate. He's the one who created all things. He's the ultimate. The atheist says, I'm unconvinced that he is. And then the Christian says, okay, so what is the ultimate? The atheist says, I don't know. I don't know. But I'm unconvinced it's Yahweh. I'm unconvinced it's Yahweh. My goodness, disgusting. This guy said, Happy Pride Month. Oh my goodness. Ew. Ew. Everybody who celebrates, every homosexual needs to repent and turn from that sin. It's disgusting. It's very disgusting. Very disgusting. Anyways, I'm going to jump off of here, guys. I'm going to jump off of here. You guys have a good night. Thanks for coming. And remember, Christians, remember my fellow brothers and sisters in Christ, do not argue with a non-committal position. It's not a position. Because they don't want to defend anything, they don't want to make any claims about anything. And that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I understand, atheists. I understand. You don't want to have to defend atheism. I understand, because you can't defend it. I understand. So you don't want to commit to anything. You don't want to. Yeah, that's why atheism is false, you know? You can't defend something that's false. You can't. I'm talking about positive atheism. Your psychological mental state of being unconvinced, that's not false. You are unconvinced. But if you don't have a position, then don't come on my page. Right? Don't come on my page. I don't want to talk to you. And that's the last time I'm ever going to do this. I'm not going to give anybody the benefit of the doubt ever again. If your position is you don't know, if that's your position, you don't know, then do not engage in conversation with a Christian, because the Christian, because he loves you, he's going to try to convince you. He's going to try, because we literally don't want you to go to hell. So we're going to try to convince you. But everything you say after we try to convince you is, you're unconvinced, you're unconvinced, you're unconvinced. And if we ever ask you, what is your position on this particular question? Your answer is, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Oh my goodness. And you guys know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. This guy says, atheists can't defend what's not there. Yeah, I agree. They can't defend a non-position. They can't defend. All right. I'm going to jump off of here. Guys, have a good night. All right, everybody on YouTube, thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. Let me see what we have here. Yeah, I'm going to go eat some food. 1 hour and 28 minutes. Not bad. Done for the night. Yeah, so everybody on YouTube, I'm going to say it again. All my Christians out there, do not argue against a non-position. See, the title of the video, Positive Atheism is False. I was arguing against a negative atheist just now. I don't argue with negative atheists. I don't. It's a very frustrating thing to do. Because, I mean, think of it this way. If there was a position out there called negative theism, which is that you're simply unconvinced that God does not exist, and you're saying you don't know if he does exist, and you don't know if he does not exist, but right now you're unconvinced that he doesn't exist. That's how incoherent negative atheism is to me. It's just, oh boy. And every time somebody who is a non-believer comes with an argument for why God does not exist, you say you're unconvinced. But if they ever ask you to defend theism, you say, well, I'm not taking a position. I don't know. I don't know. I'm glad he thinks I'm irrational, and I hope he never talks to me again. I'm totally fine with that, because we're never talking again about this. I'm gonna remember his name too. Anyways, guys, have a good night. God bless you all.